Iawn, so bore da pawb, a croeso, diolch am ymuno ein sesiwn Sbotolau. Good morning all, welcome and thanks for joining our Spotlight session. So first thing to mention, the session is being recorded. You can find our privacy notice, a bit further information, everything on the meeting invite itself. So today's topic, we're looking at just transition and the just transition framework. So really looking forward to hearing from our presenters. And this session is part of our Climate Spotlight series. So these sessions are bite-sized, they're 45-minute sessions where we explore a particular topic with guest speakers, and then we have time for a Q&A afterwards as well. So please do get involved after the presentation. So the series is facilitated by the WLGA and our climate support programme, and that's funded by Welsh Government. And the aim of our programme is to support and work with Welsh councils to prepare for a net zero public sector. So joining us today, our guest speakers are Geraint and Aashna. Really pleased to have both of you here today. And they're both from Welsh Government's Just Transition team, and really looking forward to hearing from them. As I mentioned, we should have some time for questions at the end. You can do that, get involved with that by using the meeting chat, or you can raise your hand as well to ask a question. And just to mention, we've actually had a couple of really great questions submitted already as part of the registration process. So thanks very much for those. So we'd like to get to those questions as well, because I think there's a couple of really good ones there. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover really in the introduction. So yeah, I'll now hand over to our presenters. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Diolch, Dewi. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us this morning. So yeah, like Dewi said, we are here today to speak to you about Just Transition, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Just Transition framework, and then hopefully look for some opportunities to collaborate and get involved in some local authority work. So we'll move on to the next slide, please, Aashna. So what is a just transition? So we define in Wales a just transition as meaning achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050 in a way that distributes the benefits and costs fairly across Welsh society. So I guess in its simplest form, the just transition is decarbonisation that's fair, responsible, and seeks to ensure that no one's left behind. You'll all be aware the economy is going to change over the next 10 to 15 years, and the Just Transition framework, which we'll talk about shortly, is designed to help us think about these changes and how policies and plans will be influenced by them. And the reason we feel is needed is to help those taking action, like yourselves on the call today, to achieve a fairer transition in which risks are mitigated, but also opportunities are maximised. Next slide, please, Aashna. So just to kind of bring Just Transition to life a little bit, I'm going to talk briefly about kind of how not to do it and how to kind of just give an example of just a badly managed transition, I suppose. So the story of coal really in the South Wales valleys. So coal mining was a dominant industry in the South Wales valleys and shaped almost every aspect of economic and social life from the late 19th century onwards. As you can see from some of the figures there, they're pretty significant. So mining drove rapid population growth, attracting migrants from other areas of Wales, England, Ireland, and elsewhere. And entire communities were built around collieries, with housing, welfare institutions, social clubs, and local identity closely linked to mining. Next slide, please, Aashna. So over a period, it was a longer period, probably from the late 19th century, the decline started, but over a period of a few decades there, you can see a significant drop in those jobs. So the dependence, I guess, on single industry left communities vulnerable when demand declined and mines closed. Government welfare payments and retraining programs were put in place, but generally had not much of an impact on unemployment and deprivation. So overall, I guess the support provided short and medium-term response, but did not create a resilient long-term economy. And then, I guess, longer term, these are the kind of... Oh, did someone want to come in there? No. I guess longer term outcomes for these areas. So the closures, as you can see, cause long-term economic decline and left us out those valleys facing persistent development challenges. Out-migration continued, especially amongst younger, more skilled workers, which led to lower educational attainment and skills levels, and limited access to new industries and employment opportunities. The knock-on effects then, I guess, you've got poor health outcomes, including higher rates of illness and disability. These remain a significant legacy, and even decades later, many communities remain reliant on welfare support, and only a proportion of those lost mining jobs have been replaced. Next slide. So I'm going to carry on with the doom and gloom a little bit more. So in terms of general inequalities of climate change, so the graph shows different household income levels. Higher income households tend to have substantially larger carbon footprints, as most of you will be aware, particularly from things like transport and aviation, while lower income households generally contribute less to emissions, but face greater barriers to adopting low carbon technologies. Vulnerable groups, so people are also most likely to live in poorly insulated housing that overheats during heat waves and stays cold in winter, driving fuel poverty and worsening illness. And these groups also have limited access to savings or insurance to recover from things like flooding and rising living costs. So I guess the point we're trying to make is, those with the least responsibility face the greatest risks as climate shocks deepen inequality, increase health impacts, and make it harder to adapt and recover. Next slide, please. It's just some stats there to highlight, and again, just highlighting the fact that in terms of benefiting from the transition going forward, lower income households may continue paying those costs related to petrol and diesel if they cannot afford upfront costs of EVs and chargers, or even access to those non-public charging infrastructure. And fuel poor households may lack capital, even where future savings are available. And then other groups of people, for example, private renters, often cannot make major improvements. And social housing tenants are heavily dependent on landlord investment. So just to flip the coin briefly, I guess like I mentioned at the start, the thing we're trying to address here is not leaving people behind, but then also trying to maximise on the opportunities that the transition brings. So the low carbon transition is not just about reducing emissions, as you will be aware. So it brings with it significant economic, social and environmental opportunities. So we have the opportunity to create high quality green jobs, improve energy security, reduce fuel poverty, reindustrialise, create a resilient and rural economy, support nature recovery, and last but not least, deliver a fairer and healthier society. So at that point, talked a little bit about what a just transition looks like to us at kind of national level. So we're really interested to kind of break things up a little bit now and receive a little bit of feedback from yourselves on this. So just launch a poll, and just in a few words, we would really appreciate some thoughts from yourselves today on what you think it would look like for your area of work. So we'll leave that there for a couple of minutes. Leave it there for 10-15 seconds, but some really good answers there. Lots in terms of fairness, lots in terms of equal access. Yeah, it's really good. Okay, I leave the poll open for a few more seconds, but Aashna, I think I'm passing over to yourself now to talk a little bit more about the Just Transition framework.
Yeah, so if the poll's still live, feel free to add to it as I give a bit of background. So back in 2021, Carbon Budget 2 identified just transition as a key area of action, and it committed us to embedding a just transition across our work. The approach we've taken to do this stems from a lot of research and evidence that took place throughout the period of Carbon Budget 2 and has resulted in us framing the work within existing structures of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. After various engagement exercises and our call for evidence, we've developed the Just Transition Framework, which was published in December 2025. Our focus is now on embedding the framework both internally and externally, and we're also in the early stages of developing our monitoring and evaluation approach. So this is our diagram that represents what we're trying to do as part of the framework. It's essentially the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act applied through climate action. It's a tool that's structured around 3 pillars, which are the 3 black boxes in the middle, and 7 guiding principles, which are the colourful boxes around, and prompts thinking and action around the wider impacts and opportunities of policies and plans that relate to primarily decarbonisation, but also adaptation. Decarbonisation decisions are happening at all levels across all organisations, and in line with our legislative framework, we all have a part to play in ensuring the risks and opportunities are shared fairly across society. So I'll go into a bit more detail about the guiding principles. The 7 guiding principles describe the what in terms of what we're trying to achieve, and those are aligned to our wellbeing goals. For example, when thinking about a just transition, we often focus on the development of green jobs and skills and any opportunities around that. What the framework tries to do is encourages people to consider a wider range of potential benefits of the transition. For example, how can we make sure that those jobs are maintained in their localities? And how can that contribute to stronger community cohesion? Can the jobs be targeted at disadvantaged or underrepresented groups and contribute to reduced inequalities? As part of our framework, we've developed what we think are really helpful question sets for each pillar and principle to prompt wider thinking around the impacts of our decarbonisation work. A little bit more detail into the 3 pillars. The 3 pillars are the how of implementing a just transition, and they align to the 5 ways of working. The first pillar is about analysing the potential impacts of a policy, plan or project and developing ideas to not only mitigate any negative impacts, but also to maximise opportunities and potential co-benefits. For example, within our own team, our climate economists have been combining data from the Climate Change Committee's workforce report alongside the Wales Index for Multiple Deprivation data, and that's so that we can better understand the workforce impacts of the transition. Pillar 2 is all around mobilising stakeholders, not only through engagement and collaboration during policy development, but also through delivery and evaluation. So an example of this is in South Wales, the Energy Service mobilised stakeholders to support the Bengal Dragons Foundation to help the Muslim community to upskill, and also assisted with proposals, grant applications and project management of a community-led renewables project. The importance of involving those most affected by policies is a key element of the just transition. And the final pillar, pillar number 3, is all around integrating a just transition into decision making from start to finish. Doing this will help achieve better outcomes from early engagement on identifying needs through policy development and appraisal processes, and ultimately in tracking progress in the intended outcomes. So an example of where this has been done really well is the Ynni Cymru programme, which has integrated a just transition by uplifting scores by 5% in community energy applications that sit within the 20% most deprived area of Wales. In addition to the question sets that we've mentioned, there's also high-level guidance in the annex of our framework that will also provide information on how the pillars can be implemented properly. So I'll pass back now to Geraint, who can go through a little bit more about what this means in practice for you.
Thanks, Aashna. Before I move on, can everyone see the slides now? And if not, just kind of let us know. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I guess we really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you today, because we feel like it's potentially a huge opportunity to embed a just transition and/or the just transition framework into local authority work. And we see probably a best example of this probably is when local authorities begin to think about updating decarbonisation plans. So, as we've said previously, the framework provides that link between the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and decarbonising the economy. And then, in relation to updating decarb plans, so we've like Aashna said, we've had a think, we've looked through some of previous local authority decarb plans and just thrown some ideas out there. Really, we see it as kind of spectrum on depending on levels of ambition and resources available to teams, appreciating they may be stretched. So this slide basically is just some examples of considerations to add into current decarbonisation plan structure. So basically to think about making a start on this. So some things to think about. Has consideration been given to whether different groups of people may be affected differently? Can all residents within the council area reasonable access to service, infrastructure, opportunity? What barriers might there be, and what mitigations can be put in place to reduce those barriers? Has sufficient engagement taken place with those likely to be most affected, or those underrepresented in decision making? And things like, are the required skills and workforce in place to carry out the actions? If not, how can these be addressed? And again, like I've touched upon already, the opportunities that come with the transition. And then next, I guess, on the spectrum is a little bit more around the framework itself. So using or directly referencing the Just Transition Framework's pillars and principles. So whether that looks like a standalone Just Transition chapter, demonstrating how the pillars and principles have contributed to the plan, or embedding some of the Just Transition pillars and principles within current structures, but making it a bit more explicit. So where things are broken down, where the plans and actions are broken down into sectors, for example, where transport actions have improved affordability for residents, accessibility for disabled people, things like opportunities to improve air quality in certain areas, hotspots. So things like that, really looking to embed those into current structures. And then I guess it's a bit of a stretch, but a fully blown just transition plan would be kind of the top of the spectrum, and this has been done elsewhere. We found an example. The best example we found is a link in the slide. A just transition plan for Newham Borough within London. And the steps there really are taken from international best practice on planning for a just transition, mainly linked to decarbonisation. So yeah, where are we now? What's the starting point? Understanding local reality, things like socioeconomic profile, key industries, strengths and weaknesses, workers and communities most exposed to change, etc. And including, obviously, these are decarbonisation plans, so including things like where are we now with our emissions. And then moving on to the vision, so setting a vision, in clear, positive vision for good jobs, resilient communities, nature recovery and fair outcomes. And I guess best practice, setting that vision with some of these groups of people and communities and some of the key stakeholders. And then moving on to the plan itself, and that's where potentially the pillars could be brought in. So that's where you start thinking about analysing the impacts and opportunities, whether that's sectoral analysis, distributional impacts, who's benefiting and who's at risk, what are the economic opportunities, are there differences between rural and urban impacts. And then pillar 2, like Aashna touched upon, what is the engagement approach? Any examples or plans to co-design or involve groups of people in decisions and actions? And pillar 3, referencing things like governance and leadership, integrating this with current things like wellbeing objectives or procurement decisions. And then on to actions. We've got things like, that's probably where I think at the moment lots of local authorities that take a kind of a sector approach. So strategic approach and thematic breakdowns. What does a just transition look like in delivery of those actions? Again, who benefits and who's at risk? What skills are needed? How are communities involved? And then in terms of the actions themselves, things like who's the lead organisation? What does the timeline and funding source look like? Carbon impact, again, making sure that we appreciate that these are decarbonisation plans, so carbon plays a central role. And then finally, I guess, learning and adapting. So can we track outcomes of the actions that you've included in the plans, and the outcomes actually matter to people? Can they be measured through metrics and data? And then reviewing those outcomes with communities and with stakeholders, and being open to adapt those actions if needed. So I think that's the most of our presentation done. Can you move on to the next slide, please, Aashna? I don't know when I'll probably come to open up for questions, so I'll skip past this slide, so we'll move on to the next one, which is just our next steps. Really, we are working in a team of two to try and embed this as much as possible across Welsh Government. We're speaking to organisations and groups like yourselves. We've spoken to a few of the NHS groups on this. Really trying to look for opportunities and encourage people to pick this up and push the point that it's the right thing to do. We've worked with internal colleagues on Carbon Budget 3, trying to improve the evidence base behind some of their policies and planned actions, and focusing our work a little bit on some individual policies that sit within a kind of additional policy section within the plan. And we're constantly building our understanding. So we've been in post about a year, and probably only the second half of that, we've worked on implementing this. So we're always learning, and in addition to that, we are developing a set of indicators for use internally initially to see if we can pick up any trends and things and try and inform our work going forward. So that's all from us. And I guess just two asks, would be to firstly have a look at the framework if you haven't already. It's not a huge document, particularly drawing attention to the pillars and principles and the question sets that Aashna highlighted. I think they'd probably be hopefully sparking some ideas for yourselves going forward. And secondly, just to get in touch really if there are any opportunities. Like I said, I think I do see a big opportunity for this to be embedded into decarb plans. So yeah, we really open to providing our support, offering our support where we can with this. That's all from us, Dewi. So do you want to kind of open this up for discussion, or do you want to pick up the questions that were sent beforehand first?
Yeah, great, and thanks to you both, Geraint and Aashna, for the presentation. I think really useful and informative. I think yes, obviously that background of the framework, but those considerations and sort of really useful practical examples, what to think about, and sort of your next steps as well. And goes without saying, obviously we can share links to the framework and that example of the Just Transition plan as well that's been put in the chat, so we can share all of that as well. So I think we'll bring the session to a close there in that case. So just thanks again to both our presenters, to Geraint and to Aashna there. Really informative session. And thanks for all the questions submitted as well, and your sort of insights and answers to those as well, Geraint. So we'll forward everything out after the session. Just note we've got a short pause over summer in terms of the Spotlight series now. I think just so everyone can have a bit of a break during school holidays, etc. But we're back in the autumn We'll be starting up again in September. Now we've got quite a few sessions planned or in the pipeline, good variety and you know, good sort of presenters to come as well. But yeah, any future dates, content, etc., will keep you updated as part of the mailing list. Similarly, any feedback on the sessions, if you've got anything that you'd like to see in future sessions as well, please get in touch. You know, we're always open to hear from you as well. So yeah, diolch yn fawr, thanks very much. With that, we'll bring today's session to a close. Diolch am fynychu a mwynhewch gweddill eich wythnos. So thanks very much for attending and enjoy the rest of your week. Hwyl fawr, goodbye.
Diolch yn fawr.